Okay, this is to show you how to use a mixer along with some microphones to make it really easy for you to record live events, both in small groups where you don't need to amplify the sound and in large groups where you need to do that. So first off, as you can see here, I am using a Yamaha MG102C mixer. This one costs around $100, and I would suggest you get that. There are some others that are less expensive. I hate to disparage a brand, but from what I understand, I looked at a Behringer mixer, and I was told by the people in the store that basically they may do the job, but they won't hold up very well. The higher-end mixers are the Mackeys, and they're really very robust, but this is sort of a mid-level line, the Yamaha. Costs about $100. You could get something similar like this in the Mackie line for about $200, and that's really probably overkill unless you're going to be using it literally almost every day. So this is the mixer that we're dealing with. I suggest you get the same one so that you can put your cords exactly in the same place and not have a problem. As you can see, I already have a lot of things plugged in here, so I'll just explain what they are. First off, at the top here, and again, I'm using the actual microphone to record onto the video camera, so I can't really use my hands here. But you see right down in here we have microphone cables connected. Those are connected via an SLR connection, which looks, I'll try and do this with one hand, looks like this. Well, I don't want to pull out my microphone. It's one of these, whoops, one of these. I'll have somebody do that for me. Yes, pull that one out if you would. Just a pull, there you go. Looks like that. And that's what it is, and you can put that back in. So it's got 4 of those, and those are the best connections to use with microphones. And so there you have it. Now below those, I don't know what those are, so don't use those. But the 4 XLR connections are where you connect your microphones into. Now I'm using these wireless microphones, and that's what I'm speaking to you with right now. In fact, the microphone you see right there, the handheld one, which is marked number 3, is I'm using a similar one to talk to you right now, and it's getting recorded right into the video camera. The microphones, or the microphone system that I'm using, are Shure's, and each one of these units, as you see this unit now, and I'll go over here to this one, you'll see that the well, maybe you won't see, yeah, you can see that that there's a little bit of a blinking light on there to indicate that I'm using that microphone. Whenever I start talking, you see that little green light blinking. So I'm on microphone 1, which is a handheld mic, and each one of these sort of wireless systems has both a wireless handheld mic as well as a wireless lavalier mic, this is number 2. So each one has one of each, so that you get a total, if you have 2 of these systems, of 4 microphones, and thus that's why I have 4 inputs going into the XLR box on the Mackie. So this is where the input is, and now I want to talk to you about the output. So once you have these items sitting in your unit, and by the way, one of the things that I'm doing here is I can control, in this case, the volume that I'm getting into the camera. Since I'm using microphone number 1, there's an output which I'm going to use this item right here, which is the monitor, and that monitor will then increase and decrease the amount of volume you're getting. So if you could turn that white knob for me called monitor and phones, if you turn it up a bit, you'll see that my volume here increases a little bit, yep, gets pretty hot. So then I've put it down to about the number 4 position or so, and that way that's how I am controlling the amount of volume that comes into the camera. Now that's either with no amplification, which is what I'm using here, because I don't need it, I don't have a big room, and I don't need to talk to a lot of people. So that's the control level that I'm using to control the amount of audio signal that's going to the camera. Now the other thing is that in order for the camera to get this signal, it's got to be coming out of somewhere, and it's coming out of where it says monitor. So the cables where it says monitor are right there, and those are the 2 that you plug in. And I actually rigged this a little bit. Those are 1/4 inch inputs, but I used an adapter because I actually used RCA cables and then adapted them to 1/4 inch plugs, and so they're going in that way. But what you will need is, you'll need a cable like this to go into where it says monitor on the Yamaha mixer here, and I'll show that to you right there. On the left side, those two cables there. The one on the right, by the way, we'll talk about later. But the monitor right there is the cable that comes out of the mixer and goes into the back of my camera, which I'm using a Canon Vixia, and there is a place where it says mic. And once you put the microphone input in there, it overrides the condenser mic, which sits in the front of the camera. So now let's talk about this other item here, your auxiliary send. Yeah, that one right there. This one is connected to, if you go all the way around, to my Marantz unit. And if you could turn that Marantz unit so we can see the back of it, you can see the back of this unit has a place where you put a line input in there. And that's actually, I've put it in the wrong place. If you could move it from out to in, that's the correct place where you would put it. And you'd put it into the line in. This is on a PMD 660 Marantz unit. That's the Marantz PMD 660. And to know whether or not that is working, if I were to hit, well, you don't even have to hit it because I have it on record pause. So if you turn it towards me this way, you can see that I'm getting the signal. As I speak loudly into the microphone, you can see that the meter there is showing up and showing me how much signal I'm getting. Now, the thing about that is that this signal that's being sent into the PMD 660 is different than the signal being sent into the camera. This one, if you can put that down now, this one is being controlled by what's called the auxiliary send. And that auxiliary send can be controlled individually with each of the speakers using the auxiliary button, which we have right down here. They're the blue buttons. So right now I'm on microphone number 1. So far left of the blue buttons is the auxiliary connected to microphone number 1. So if you could show people, if you go up and down on that while I'm speaking, you will see that the meter on the PMD goes differently. So I'm going to be talking here. You go down low with it, and down low, down low, down low. Look, it almost goes away. There's almost no signal. Now, if you start to go up higher and higher with it, you can start to see the green buttons and all the way up to the red, which it sort of red lines. So the question is, where do we want to put it? We want to put it so most of the time when we're speaking, it goes to about the green right there and doesn't go too much, except when you get real loud, it goes into the red. So that's where you want to put it on there. So the nice thing is using this system, the auxiliary send, I can now control each of the levels of each of these microphones up here using each of these controls down here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so again, if you see, I have all of the other ones in the 0 position, and if I wanted to mute someone, essentially what I would do is I could take all of the microphones or any of the microphones and set their auxiliary levels to 0, which would make them virtually unable to be heard, especially if you were amplifying the signal. Now, that being said, the units that I'm using for the remotes are Shure. These are Shure, and I forget the numbers on these here. There might be some kind of a number on the back of those that we could check. And it is a model number, and do we have it on there? Yeah, we do. It is a Shure model, nothing, can't see. Yes, it is. It's well, there's some kind of a fancy long title for it, but it's got a Shure, yeah, there it is, the PG88 internal antenna diversity. So it's a PG88 Shure. Now that gives you 2 separate microphones, 1 lavalier and 1 handheld. And so using this system along with this mixer, you are now in a position to create events where you need 4 microphones. And usually what I do is I use 1 handheld for myself, and if I have 2 people speaking, I'll give one of them one of the lavalier mics and the other speaker the other lavalier mic, and I'll have this other handheld mic to be used, number 3 there, in the audience. So I usually like to hold on to a handheld mic myself, and the other speakers will prefer the lavaliers that are number 4 and number 2. And again, one of each of these is connected to each of these units here. And we have the PMD for recording strictly audio. Now, why would I want to record strictly audio if I am already getting audio being recorded onto this video? The reason for that is that I like to have the 2 things separate because I don't want to have to pull the audio track off of the video camera and put it, because it's a lot more work. So that's why I'm doing it. Now, the last element of this whole mix is in the event that you need to amplify your signal, I'm coming out of what's called here the stereo out. And those stereo out are 2 1/4-inch outs. Those are right there. Yep, that's stereo out right there. Those are the far right 1/4-inch connections with a cable, and they're going all the way into the PMD, or it's called not the PMD, the P150, the Fender unit. And it's going into positions number 2 and 3. Now, apparently you can put this somewhere else, but again, just do it like I'm doing it here and put it into positions 2 or 3. You don't want to put it into any of the other places. And so if I were to turn this on now, which I could do, but I'd want to be careful that my levels were set properly here, I would actually get an amplified sound. I'd basically get the sound of my voice coming through the speakers. So again, I'm using the Fender P150, and this folds up into a nice little unit. It looks almost like a big briefcase. But you can use any speaker system that has power and do this, but you're going out, and it's going into the 2 speakers, and there are the 2 speakers right next to each other. So there you have it. You have a little brief explanation of sort of how to do this, and you can do this either with amplification or without amplification, and there you have it. You're set.